Fantastic. I'll come to you when I can. And please make sure you're on mute if you haven't already muted yourself. Okay, super. So Agus, thanks very much. You're welcome to kick us off.
Okay, I'm allowed a few questions, or it's not like a sort of 2-question or 3-question each thing, is it?
No, you can ask a few, Agus, that's fine.
Okay, great. Ashley, I can't see you, but I'd like to hear you. How do you reflect on what's happened over the last 24 hours?
Afternoon, Agus. Yeah, it's been a pretty mad 24 hours, to be honest, since we got the news yesterday morning that we had 2 positive lateral flows amongst the management team. We obviously took the right precautions then to keep everyone in one place and isolate them. And I guess then we had the news last night that we feared that there had been a bigger spread amongst the group. And then, the last 12 hours has been a bit of a blur, to be honest.
Have the players been able to go home, or are they isolating, quarantining in one location?
I don't think any have gone home yet. They're still at the team hotel, and each case needs to be treated individually and risk assessed. And I mean that from the perspective of what's going on at home as much as what's going on with them. But obviously with the aim to get them back home as quickly and as safely as possible.
I think it's quite important to clear up that what protocols they were living under this time. I mean, they weren't nearly as stringent as those bio bubbles of last summer. What were they allowed to do? Yeah,
well, very, very close, actually, Agus, but certainly, yes, you're right, and you know better than anyone. Last year, we lived in biosecure environments. This year, we tried to operate in what we called safe environments, and just from the nature of what we were doing this year, playing all around the country, traveling a lot. Hotels weren't sole use, so we were sharing certain spaces within the hotels, but not key areas like eating areas. And given this variant, which is clearly more infectious, I'm not the expert on that, but it clearly is, the risks of us catching infection in the group were obviously going to go up. And we hoped, as I say, yesterday morning, that we might have had a couple of positives and we could isolate them, but given the size of the spread within the group, the only thing to do was to isolate the whole group and move forward with a completely different squad.
Does it feel to have been worth it to have relaxed them a bit, given what's happened now? And I mean, obviously, I'm thinking about what's going ahead, and with India and 5 test matches and so on. I mean, I know this is all fairly new, and you perhaps haven't had a chance to sit down and think about it all. But then, I mean, are there implications for what's going to follow?
Well, again, if we look at it, if we go back to the start of this summer, I think we always hoped, Agus, that we would move somewhat with society. Society started to open up. And that was always the plan until the variant arrived. So actually, what we had planned in terms of opening up, in terms of much more access to families, into eating outside, into, you know, the normal freedoms, you know, other people are taking for granted right now, just didn't happen. And we had discussions about this as recent as the weekend with the players, that we still hope for this to be the case. And then this happens, and it's a reminder to all of us what this can do to a team and to a sports team, particularly right now when we're sort of living, at a different rate to society. We're almost misaligned to how, at odds to how society is operating, and that is particularly difficult when we know that one case can shut you down, let alone 7. So it's something we're constantly juggling with, and we're certainly juggling with the amount of time our players have spent in these environments. We have extremely busy schedules, and we've been doing this now for 14 or 15 months. And so to expect them to adhere to the sense that they go to the ground, they stay away from each other, they go back to the hotel, they put their mask on and go straight back to their room, they eat on their own, etc., is almost impossible for that period of time without losing people. So if relaxing is allowing those guys to eat together or spend some time together, and we know, I guess, they spend a lot of time in the dressing room together where that infection could happen. So it's almost impossible to completely, remove that risk, I think, from the environment.
And yet you see what's happened. I mean, your whole squad's gone. and if that were to happen during the Test series and the investment, the sponsorship, the broadcasting money, all of that, if that would happen in the Test series, without wanting to do a one-day international series down, but a 5-test series against India is big stuff. You can't afford to gamble with that.
Well, and we haven't gambled. I don't believe we've gambled at all, and we are fully aware of the risk. No one is more than us, and that's the knife edge we are working on all the time, is this bit around looking after our people and keeping them sane as much as anything, with protecting the revenues of the whole game. And it's a really difficult balance to strike. But I think we're also hopeful that post 19th of July, some things may change, and that we may have, I don't know about more freedoms, but more freedoms in the event of a positive case to treat things differently. And that's what we're hoping for. And I think that's what sport needs going forward.
So you're hoping that one ping doesn't necessarily mean that the whole squad has to go in future? That's
what we're hoping for. And obviously a big part of that is making sure we get everyone vaccinated or double vaccinated as quick as we can.
And to clear that, how many of these players have been at least single, if not double vaccinated?
I believe everyone in that environment was single vaccinated at least, and some more so. Many of the older players and staff will have been double vaxxed, but yeah, at least single vax for everyone.
Yeah, and that's the last one from me. Thanks very much. I mean, you've got, I think, is it 16 or 18 players coming in from all over the place. How are you going to make sure that there's nothing coming in with these players for Thursday? Well,
that's another challenge, I guess. So we will certainly go back to different travel arrangements. When we arrive at hotel, everyone will have to isolate until we've done testing and those results come back. But you're right, we are still living in many ways in the unknown. So that's one of the reasons we have a large group of players for 3 ODI matches at the moment, and clearly hoping that we don't have any issues come tomorrow morning. But we're seeing throughout the country, and some instances in county cricket, that it's not easy to avoid this virus.
Thanks, Ashley. Thanks from me. Cheers.
Thanks very much,
Ashley.
James Cole, please.
Hi. How is everyone who's tested positive?
Okay, actually. Yeah. There are a couple with what we'd say, minor symptoms, or almost flu-like symptoms, but generally okay, and some completely asymptomatic. So yeah, it's incredibly frustrating, but the priority, as I said, is to make sure they're well looked after, and we get them home as soon as possible.
And you mentioned the restrictions were slightly loosened to sort of match with society during this summer. Can you tell us what the restrictions were like in Bristol specifically? Could the players go to cafes, restaurants, bars?
No, and that's, I guess that's the point I'm trying to stress here, is that we're talking about relaxed protocols in that, well, guys were still able to go and play golf as they were last year under the right risk assessments. There was a period at the start of the trip that we risk assessed Cardiff, where guys could go and go for a walk outdoors and exercise outdoors, and if they could grab a takeaway coffee, great, but that was it. And at that point, which was about 2.5-3 weeks ago, again, the country was a different place. But since that point, the squad have been living under very tight restrictions. And so, as I say, this is a frustration for everyone.
So you're confident then that no protocols were breached?
I'm very confident that the players haven't breached in those protocols. And if we can almost identify, I won't go into details, but through the positive cases, that's pretty much, what we're seeing. Almost identify how that spread has gone, but I won't go into any more detail than that.
You can't say where you think it originated then?
We can't say exactly where it's originated. If we knew that, I mean, it's almost an impossible task. From what I'm told, amongst that many, we can identify how some of this is developed through close contact, but Given again the size of the infection in the group, it would be impossible and too risky anyway to take any of the group forward.
And just to confirm, are all those players, well, is that squad that's isolating ruled out of the entire one-day series, or could they come back towards the end?
Well, they'll have to follow normal medical protocols, which is the 10 days isolation, I believe. So that's, I think that started from over the weekend at some point. So the ODI series is out. We've only picked an ODI squad currently, and we'll reassess for the T20s. And
finally, from me, you touched on it there, but do we need to now find a new model as we move forward, and society is starting to become freer? Do you hope that actually the model for professional sport, elite sport, is going to change then?
I do hope so, and for a number of reasons, James. I think we, as you touched on, we're seeing society open up, and we're seeing an almost impossible situation as that happens, and this virus is still spreading, that we're trying to stop anything at all coming in our environments. And it, given what I talked about, let's stop talking about relaxed protocols. And if we haven't got sole use hotels, and we've got shared spaces in hotels, and there's touch points, and there's travel together, you're in grounds where crowds are, you have staff coming in and out of environments, however much testing you do, there is going to be risk in each of those scenarios. And I think we need more help to try and manage this, and hopefully that's coming. I'm sure that's post 19th of July. We know the government are doing everything they can to get back to normal as quick as we can, and I think professional sport could do with some help with that.
Thank you.
Thanks, James. Rory, please.
Hi, Ashley. Just with looking back to Sri Lanka last year and South Africa at the end of that year, England ultimately pulling out of both of those trips. I just wondered how those conversations, obviously, that you've had to have with Pakistan have gone, and if we ever came close over the last 24 hours to this series being cancelled or postponed.
I think Pakistan have been extremely understanding of the situation, how we've handled it. It's an unprecedented situation in terms of what we've been able to do over the last even 12 to 16, 18 hours, from making the decision that squad, that group of people was not viable to take forwards, to having a whole new group of players and management team. I think is an incredible effort by everyone involved, whether that be at ECB or from the network, who we've had a lot of support from. So look, it's we're dealing with a very difficult circumstance here, but I think we've done as well as we can, and there is still a bit of unknown, and we probably won't sleep easy until we've got through those tests when we arrive in Cardiff.
And do you know, presumably you've also been in contact with Sri Lanka, do you know what the situation is there? Because they're obviously, we don't want this to become a domino effect where Sri Lanka have a case, they go play India. Do you know what the situation is with Sri Lanka and whether they've had to put in any new things? You've been in contact with them, presumably.
No, I haven't, but we have, and they've been communicated with about our situation. I don't know any more than that, Rory, right now.
Ashley, hi, it's Julian. Just following on from Rory's question, England got out of South Africa in quite quick time in December. I mean, what's the sort of qualitative difference in this case that means you're proceeding with a series rather than deciding that it's too difficult to go on with it?
Well, we didn't actually leave any earlier than we were supposed to in the end, Julian. We left on the same day. I don't want to be dragging up too much of history, but in terms of the comparisons, at the time we talked about we were living in an environment where COVID was within that environment and we were still preparing to play. This environment, we've identified the issue, we've shut it down basically, we're looking after our people, and we're trying to keep cricket on, both for us, for the spectators, for our broadcasters, for all our partners. We're trying to get cricket on as best we can, and the best way to do it is with this new group of people, and that's not great for those players that are stuck in isolation and that management team, but it's our only way forward, and I think it's the right thing to do.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julian. John, please.
Ashley, morning. Are you worried the BCCI might pull out their players from the Test series?
I haven't got that far, John. I'm not worried right now. I think it's important we work really closely with BCCI. I think, again, we touched on earlier, we're all hopeful that as this summer moves forward, we will be able to reduce the restrictions that are around the teams. And again, one of the important things around that is getting everyone double vaccinated, and we should be able to enjoy more freedoms. I mean, we've generally got a group of very young, fit people who will be asymptomatic even if they catch this. And I think I heard the government talk about yesterday about treating this as flu eventually, and we're going to get to that stage. But at the moment, as I said, we're sort of operating at odds with that, and it's tough to manage, but we're doing our best possible job we can of it.
And just looking a bit further ahead, the Australian Grand Prix was cancelled today, and that's not until November. What's your latest communication with Cricket Australia regarding the Ashes? Is that definitely on?
Well, we're in regular communication with Cricket Australia, and look, yeah, it's on. There is obviously a lot to talk about, John, and this is every day, every 24 hours, there are a lot of challenges in this environment, but we want to get cricket on, and we'll do everything possible to do that. And we're all aware of the mental pressures this causes all of our people as much as the physical, and we've got to try and work our way through that. But cricket's what we do, and we've learned a lot through this process. And you guys have talked about comparisons of Sri Lanka, whatever it was now, 16 months ago, and South Africa for Christmas. All the time we're learning, and all the time we're learning we've got to live with this and manage it as much as try and avoid it.
Thanks, John. Yaz, please.
The most obvious absentee from the squad list will be Alex Hales. How close was he to selection? Has he been considered at all for selection?
Well, when we did selection late last night, clearly we have some of the best white ball batsmen in the world at the moment, which is fantastic. Now they're missing, but what we've never questioned is Alex's ability. The reason he's absent from these teams previously are for different reasons, and they're not things for us to get into now, I don't think, and not things for us to get into over the last 12 hours. So that's all I'm going to say on it.
And just another question, obviously calling up so many players in the middle of a county championship round is logistically difficult, but did you get any pushback from any of the counties on the selection of certain players?
We didn't actually, and huge thanks to all of the directors of cricket, the chief execs and the chairman, really supportive. It is tough for them. There's 2 rounds of county championship cricket. I think now we're pulling 11 or 12 players out of this round. It is tough. We get that, but everyone's been hugely supportive and hugely supportive of the challenge that we've had in this last 24 hours. And it's a real sort of countrywide effort to get, hopefully to get cricket on this week.
Thanks, Yaz. Paul, please. And then I think we'll have George and Jonathan, and we'll finish there. Thanks.
Hi, Ash. Can I just check whether you took the decision to take the whole squad out or whether that was acting on government advice? The reason I asked that is making the comparison with the Scottish football team. When one of their players tested positive, no one else seemed to have to pull out.
Yeah, well, we had to, we obviously followed the medical advice more than anything, Paul, and so given the size of the problem, if you like, it was clear quite early on that it wouldn't be viable. Again, for a number of reasons, as much as anything, even taking some players forward, whatever we thought those risks were, to bring other guys in to then, players who could already be infected, it just doesn't sit well with any of us. And that's unfortunate, but we felt this was the cleanest way of doing it. It clearly, from a performance point of view, it's not our best team. We know that, but it's exciting for some of these guys. We've got a good mix of some 30 pluses in that squad and some young guys as well. And some of those guys would have thought their chance of playing for England perhaps had gone forever. So I think it's time for us we want to look on the positive side of that now and be quite excited about that. And particularly, we look forward to playing everywhere, but going to a full house at Lords on Saturday will be a great occasion for them.
And can I quickly ask as well, you mentioned that you hope for some government help after the 19th. In what way can they help you? No,
I think one thing we've done extremely well through this is work really closely with government. And I think we all want society to return to normal as quickly as possible. And I'm sure after the 19th, and I hope we'll get some tools, if you like, that will help us do that more easily, particularly around, how we treat not so much positive cases, because they're positive cases, but certainly close contacts in all sport. And, we're hearing that through, in society, aren't we? That may change. And I hope that's replicated in professional sport.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. George, please.
Good day, Ashley. Firstly, thanks for doing this at short notice.
All right.
In terms of selection, firstly, was it entirely meritocratic, or was there an attempt to spread the burden around the counties? And secondly, looking at, well, I'm presuming that this may have come through kids and families and stuff like that. That might have been the connection. Is it fair to say that there won't be any thought to locking down in the way that you had to last summer and over the winter?
Sorry, is there any thought in doing that? Do you say?
Well, is there? Yeah, I guess so. Yes. Yeah.
Well, certainly. Can we get any tighter? We're still going to be in shared spaces in hotels and things like that, so there's still risk. But I think we need to be all over our protocols and our living areas and our team spaces. And whilst I don't think we've been slack, I think we just need to reinforce that, particularly with a new group of people. Some of them have never been in these environments, and so we also need to look after them. What was the first part of your question, George?
Well, sort of from that, I mean, the protocols in the hotel are understood, but what about families? I mean, presumably you don't want to stop players seeing their families again. And the other one was about the spread of selection around the counties.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so, during this period, I think this next 6 games, I think we are going to have to tighten up the environment, and I think it's unlikely that we'll have visits into the hotels. Previously, those visits were very carefully risk assessed and arduous, actually, in many ways, because they took a long time to get access to their partners. But yeah, in terms of selection, it worked out. Fortunately, we wanted to pick what we thought was a strong squad. There were some challenges along the way picking that squad, but no, we didn't just spread the load. I think we were fortunate in that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, George. And final one, please, from John Norman.
Hi, Ash. Just a follow-up question from Paul, actually, in regard to the situation that happened with the Scottish football team. I know you can't speak on their behalf, but can you just clarify the ECB protocol the moment a player tests positive in regard to your decision-making? Do you believe that essentially if one player has tested positive for COVID, because the players have shared a dressing room, possibly shared a journey to and from the ground, that essentially that's it, and therefore the rest of the team have to isolate?
John, I think this is obviously more a medical question, so I'll try and answer this as best I can. I think there is a difference between a single positive, where you can contact trace and do that as well as you possibly can, accepting that you might not get every movement and every minute of the day, but when you have 7 positives in an environment, that that spread has begun, and you don't know where else that may be, because there may be infections in other members of that group that haven't come out yet untested. So in that case, the only thing to do, you're looking at a breakout, as far as I'm aware, and then you need to shut it down.
So hypothetically, if it had just been the one case, then maybe you wouldn't have been required to be so overriding in your decision making. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, quite possibly. Even if we'd had the 2 originals we had yesterday morning, if the PCRs had come back all clear, then yes, we may have been able to treat this very differently. But once it went to this number, there was just no chance.
Brilliant. Thank you, mate.
Thanks, John. Thanks very much, Ash. Thanks, everyone. I will share the audio and video as soon as I can. Thanks very much.
Thanks all.
Thank you. Thanks, Ash.
Bye-bye.
Bye.